congratulations. I mean, this movie, you just are one of the first audiences to see it. I just saw it at its world premiere at the Toronto Film Festival, where it got this exact same kind of reaction. It's really touching people here, I think, this film, and for a good reason. So let me start right down at the end there with you, Felix. You are from Belgium. This is your first English language film, and you did a hell of a job, I have to say. So this, you co-wrote it. This is a very unusual kind of project, and it's very authentic too, because it comes from not one book, but two books. One by David Sheff and one by Nick Sheff about his addiction here. What was the thinking here of combining those two books to turn it into a movie, which is, I've never heard really done before that?
Well, it was presented to me and pitched to me by the producers that way, and it's Plan B who produced it, Jeremy Kleiner and Didi Gardner, and you know, it immediately attracted my attention, because it's indeed a very unique thing to do. A father story, a son story, both point of views. In the books, they actually tell the same story, but in a very different kind of way. And so David's story is a very mythical story. A father trying to understand his son, save his son, and help his son, and ultimately, you know, getting to a point where he needs to let go, in a sense, in order to save himself, save his family, and ultimately save his son. So a very mythical, huge story. And then Nick's point of view was really inside the person going through this. So a very inside view in this issue, and I just felt so much empathy for both of them, and I thought combining it into one story had like the unique opportunity to, in a very simple way, lay out something very complex. And I thought it was really important to do that, and also for personal reasons, I thought I needed to do this.
And it plays so uniquely like real life. This movie seems so authentic to me. It almost doesn't seem like a conventional film in the way it plays out. Authenticity was a real importance for you, I imagine, in this.
Absolutely. For me, it's the key to anything. The way we work on a script, the way these amazing actors approach their roles, and the way we work on set. Authenticity is for me everything, rather than plotting it out and making a story fit a narrative that you want to make a point. I mean, I think it makes an incredible point, but through something that reflects life, and because it comes from real life.
And your co-writer here, Luke Davies, who did a fantastic movie a couple of years ago called Lion, you may have seen. He's from Australia, and he also did another book that he adapted into a movie called Candy, which is also dealing with drug addiction. And yes, with Heath Ledger, you see that picture, and Abby Cornish. It also came from your own life too, because you were addicted to heroin for many years, right, Luke? So why did you want to get involved in telling another story of addiction here?
Well, funny story, I didn't. And my agent brought the books to me, and I read them, and I recognized their power and their beauty and their authenticity. And also I was struggling. I was really poor. I couldn't get work, but I read the books and I said, I don't think I'm going to take this job, because I got a vision for my future, and I don't want to be pigeonholed as a guy who's like some kind of drug expert. And she said, my agent said, okay, I accept that, but go and take the meeting with Jeremy Kleiner and Didi Gardner anyway, because Plan B is a really good company, and you should have that meeting. So I went into that meeting knowing that I was going to say no, but 4 days before that meeting, Philip Seymour Hoffman died, and the night before the meeting, I got an email from my father, who remembered that 10 years earlier when Candy premiered at the Berlin Film Festival, Philip Seymour Hoffman had been there with Capote, and we, the Candy team and the Capote team, had all had dinner one night in Berlin. It was my first film, so it was like huge. My dad remembered the anecdotes about all of us being at dinner with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Heath Ledger. The night before the meeting with Plan B, I get this email saying, I suppose you heard that Philip Seymour Hoffman died. That's pretty sad. And he said a few other things. And he ends the email saying, Luke, sometimes I feel this family is so blessed. And I understood that what he was saying, what he was talking about was the same kind of anxiety that David Sheff went through for all those years. The paper said that Philip Seymour Hoffman was 22 years sober, clean and sober when he relapsed, and then he was dead a year later. I was 23 or 24 years sober at the time, and I think it was my dad's way of saying, I completely get how lucky we are. And when I got that email, I cried, and I realized I'd never ever dealt with the father-son relationship in Candy the novel or Candy the film. So then that night, I didn't fully change my mind, but I went in there waiting to meet these guys and thought maybe it's in the stars that I should actually write this and deal with the father-son relationship, which is at the heart of the film.
You talk about the father-son relationship, the heart of this film. Steve, this is a heartbreaking kind of situation, and I would gather that a lot of people in this audience can relate directly to it. Everybody is touched by this in one way or another, and for you, being a father as well, what made you want to sign on for this movie and this part? Because you're playing a guy that's living, that's here, that's going to did see this.
Well, in part to work with Plan B again, because they have such great taste.
As you did with The Big Short.
Right. The chance to work on something that's just so relevant right now. And I have kids. I have 2 teenagers, so I definitely identified on that level. Before I came here tonight, I was sitting on the couch watching TV with my son, and it's just these little weird, stupid moments that kind of are ultimately the reason why I wanted to do this. And he's 14, and he's just started to shave. And he's kind of mad at me because I'm a hairy guy. That's where he got it from.
Yeah, we saw the 40-year-old version.
Oh, yeah. That kid is cursed, for sure. But he's feeling his face, and he said, I've got stubble already, and I just shaved yesterday. He's 14.
I don't even shave.
Well, clearly for this movie, we had to fake it, that we were father and son. But then he paused and he said, but you know what? When I get to college, I'm going to grow a hipster beard. So he was kind of into it. And I know it seems so silly and innocuous, but just little moments like that. I would go home every night after we shot, and I'd look at my kids and I'd hug them a little bit more closely because it felt so real to me and so true. And after meeting Nick and David and watching and reading about and talking to them about what they had to go through and experience, it's terrifying and earth-shattering. And so it was an important thing to want to be a part of it.
What was it like? How did David inform your performance, or how did you use that? We have a room full of actors here, SAG, a lot of SAG people. Yeah! Who are curious about that when you're playing somebody like that, and he's there probably on the set, or...
Both Nick and David, and I don't want to speak, you can speak to your experience with Nick, but David was extremely generous, and he never intimated the kind of performance he wanted. He didn't put any parameters on what he expected, and there really were no expectations. He just made a leap of faith and entrusted this story, his story, and his son's story, to essentially a group of strangers. So that was generous and I think very brave. What I gleaned from knowing him is how open-hearted he is, and kind, and loving, and he's just a man of real character. and that's what I tried to imbue the character of David.
And beyond the script, did you keep going back to the book? His book, Beautiful Boy, was his book. Did you find things in there that weren't in the script and that you could use?
Oh, sure, yeah, that was a roadmap for the whole thing.
And as Timothy, amazing performance again. I say this to you every day. But you are, you worked with Nick. What was it like with Nick? And I want to say, too, that Nick, I saw him at the Toronto Film Festival. He was on stage here at the world premiere with his father and talking so eloquently about this. He's doing really well. What was your experience?
Just someone with an extraordinary spirit and very warm, and for those that have read Beautiful Boy in the room, the way David describes his son that was very apt, and I think Steve alluded to it just now. I think we were both very lucky in that I had this experience meeting Nick too. When I sat down with him, he brought Daisy, who's in the movie as well. For some reason, I still thought she'd be 7 years old, but she's like a full adult human being. And I just, he immediately was, I felt gave us all the freedom and all the liberty and all the faith that the representation of his family's life and his story would be done justice. And I feel like he was very clear from the get-go, like by the laws of reality, and that we are not them. We could not possibly exactly be what their experience was. And certainly we are acting. It's not what they actually went through, but it's been very good in hanging out with him since and talking to David and Nick that they're happy with the representation, and certainly they were proud enough of it to be able to come on stage with us, like you talked about in Toronto.
So where do you go as an actor? What are you, 22 now, 23, 22? Where do you go, where do you find that as an actor to go and play this thing that's not common to your life, addiction like this? How do you do that? What is your process, as they say in the acting trade? I just wonder, and I've seen you in so many different things, and you can find it one way or another.
I don't know, I think first and foremost it's Felix at the end of the stage, and I just felt tremendously safe in his hands and very well guided, and a lot of gratitude that he put me in this movie because it wasn't obvious, and I don't know, for this it just felt like look for the light, and it'll be less, I didn't want to like play. I didn't want to like juice it up. I didn't want to like. It's primarily about family to me. I think it should be shocking in that as an audience member you go, oh my God, this could happen to anyone. I would hope that's the point of the movie in many ways, is the addiction, which is, as you said, I'm sorry for any and all of those that are going through it or affected by someone going through it, but almost everybody in this country is going through this right now. And as a young person, there's an opiate epidemic right now, and I felt like, sorry, this is going way off track, that wasn't your question, but I just felt like, there was a lot of merit and honor in doing the story, and to answer it, it always felt like look for the light, like by nature the story is what it is, so to, like be miserable on set or having to think I had to make it even more emotional than it was. It felt like some of my favorite moments in the movie are with Daisy and Jasper, and you see the family operating in a way that you go, oh wow, this could be any happy family, and sorry, that was a big ramble.
Amazing. And then Amy, you're terrific in this film too, because she's apart from the family now. They're divorced, and then she has that whole guilt and everything else that went on. And how did you capture that? How did the real life intersect with playing this role for you?
Well, I'm a mother as well. I have an 8.5-year-old daughter, and I constantly wonder, oh, is that good parenting? Am I going to mess her up? Is this good? Is this a good choice? And I I don't know if that ever goes away. I think my own mother thinks that of me now, and I think that just means there's just so much just love that you have for these creatures that you want to stay safe. And so that's what I just thought was my job in this film. Is, I mean, that was so extraordinary in the books, is the amount of love, even in their fractured relationship between Vicky and David, that at the end of the day, their love for their child and what they will do to keep that child safe really just spoke to me.
And you had to play some of those scenes alone. We had to watch that, you know, as she's talking. And I always look at that as an actor. I think that's one of the more difficult things to pull off, too.
I wasn't alone. Steve was hidden behind the couch.
Is that right?
And we'll reenact it right now.
Why won't you call me back?
Well, that's one process.
It's no secret of mine. I've been dying to work with Steve again since we first met, and I never really imagined it in this setting. But I am so grateful to be a part of this film because it's so important. It really matters. At the end of the day, when we talk about what will have lasting power, I feel like this film matters. But I feel like it really helped to have worked and known Steve and have this camaraderie and just trust with each other, because you do have to drop in fast and deep and hard for those scenes the way they have and for it to be effective. So it was very advantageous to know him.
That's great. And I wanted to ask you two, both you and Timothy, about the meeting here and getting that chemistry. You auditioned with Steve. How did that work out? Did
It worked out well.
That's a stupid question. It obviously worked out very well. But what was it like when he walked into the room? What did you think? Did you know?
It was, and I've said this before, it was lightning in a bottle. I've never seen anyone, I certainly never auditioned that well. It was, because
Who has seen the Anchorman audition tape?
it was, I mean, talk about just a moment in time, and I'll never forget it. And I remember Timothy walked out of the room, and we all just stared at each other like, wow, let's just start shooting. It was really, really, really special moment, and I'm so excited.
I have the first audition we did. I wanted to have a coffee with him just to get to know each other a little bit. I like to be at ease myself, and I want the actors to be at ease. So we meet up. We go all over the lot. Remember that in those golf carts, and start talking. But we were very silent, and we sit down and have a coffee. And I start to talk a little bit, and all of a sudden Timmy pulls out his backpack and all these notes and books and he said I was just gonna listen, but I've thought about it and this and this and this. So to go back to an earlier question, he prepared incredibly well for the audition, for the role, for the whole thing. He was so obsessed by it and so worked so hard to get it. It was incredible.
It's amazing. I'm getting a... Oh, go ahead.
There's a tension with auditioning. It's like, do you want to get the role or do you want to be able to live with yourself after you don't get it? Just to explain myself there, that's all it was like, I'm probably not going to get this. Like, let me just tell him how crazy I am about this. And at least so I can know that he didn't ever think, like, whatever, he wasn't, absolutely insane about doing this role.
It's nice, and before we have to go, because I am getting a wrap-up thing, terrific choice of music, amazing soundtrack. From Nirvana to Fiddler on the Roof to John Lennon's Beautiful Boy, everything. theme, perfectly chosen. Did you work closely with David and Nick on choosing the songs, or how involved were they?
Well, music is super important for them. The books are filled with quotes, so that inspired us to in this movie, explore this idea of having the soundtrack of their lives play throughout the movie. The movie's also, I mean, it plays with time, it goes back and forth, it works like memory works, and the music is doing the same thing, basically.
Great. And you did something I've never seen, I can't remember, in a movie with that dialogue, with that monologue at the end, going through right to the end credits, which is just riveting to listen to.
Thank you.
It's unbelievable, amazing.
Charles Bukowski's words.
Yeah, well delivered too. Congratulations on Beautiful Boy. Thank you.